Oh, to be in Greece and not have to talk about Fulham. I'm jealous of Joe Sansom. Welcome to the Jack and Jack show for our sins. Jack Stradley, how are you, mate?
Very well. Very happy to be back on the channel. As you mentioned, Joe Sansom on holiday and has picked a blinder of a week to miss this show. I'm happy to obviously step in. Not happy to talk about Deepdale and our Carabao Cup antics.
Yeah. Apologies if I'm sounding a little bit tinny. It's because for some reason, my mum's laptop has been updated, and for some reason I can't get my mic to connect to the system. So hey ho, here she goes. We'll have to just deal with it. It's not the worst thing to happen in the world. What was the worst thing to happen in the world was that Fulham lost a marathon penalty shootout to Preston. I genuinely thought it would go on forever, but it didn't. Jack, we were out the Carabao Cup in a competition we got to the semi-final last year. Your head is hot, so have at it.
So warm. It could not be warmer. It's ridiculous. There is a heat wave going on from my cranium. I'll be honest with you. Look, I've spoke about this to you, and I spoke about this to other mates, and I understand why we made 11 changes, right? Everyone kind of does it at this stage of the competition because you want to ensure that players who, at the start of the season, few players in terms of preseason haven't got the legs and stuff like Sander Berger, and a few others who you just want to get some minutes under their belt and whatnot. I completely understand that. If you win the game like you do against Birmingham, no one bats an eyelid. It's completely fine. You go on to the next round. But when you lose against a team that you should be beating, you just look like a bit of an idiot for making 11 changes because, we could talk about the game and the performance and all that in a minute, but the in terms of our season, right? We're not going to go down, right? We're not going to go down, and
I hope.
We know there's been enough over the first few games with our strongest 11 that we're not going to go down. And we're also, by that same token, we're probably not going to, challenge those upper echelons. I think we're still maybe a little bit light in certain areas. And I know that, sometimes we take a while to get going, all that sort of stuff, but I can't personally see that. So cup competitions are, a really important thing for Fulham's season when we were so successful in the Carabao Cup last year. And we've now shot ourselves in the foot by making all these changes, getting knocked out of the competition in a game that we should be winning. We're now, and this is a little bit cynical because it's not true, we're now at a point where it's like the season, like what is there to get excited about in terms of, I get that, we're only a few games into the Premier League, but, a cup run can very easily distract from Premier League performances where maybe you're not firing on all cylinders. And, we haven't got that now until at least January when the FA Cup comes around. And knowing our luck, we'll get Man City.
I agree with you to an extent, but I have to say that there weren't any complaints at the lineup. In fact, even making 11 changes, that was a very strong team, in my personal opinion. A team that could beat Preston on paper. So, I can understand I would have maybe started Smith Rowe just to give him a bit more minutes. But in terms of changes I would have made to the West Ham team, I reckon he's probably the only player that I would have kept in the starting 11 because, in hindsight, you could easily say start Leno, but we just weren't ever going to start Leno.
Yeah,
Robinson didn't travel, nor did AP, nor did Jedi, nor did Adama. So, and I was obviously everyone wanted, the clamour was for Nelson to start because of his performance against West Ham. So I looked at that and went, yeah, let's go for it, let's have it. And I think it's sort of game state that sort of brought this sort of opinion across now that, because we've now lost, that it's complete waste and why did we make 11 changes? But I think no one was really complaining about the 11 changes when the team came out an hour before kickoff. And I think that's because we have good squad depth.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the squad depth is really good. And that 11 should beat Preston. There is absolutely no doubt about it. And I'm the same. You see the lineup, okay, that's fine, cool. We've still got enough to beat them. But it goes back to the kind of the point that I made before of if it goes well and you win that game, it's like, cool, absolutely fine, no problem. But when you maybe don't take the competition as seriously as you potentially should, and you get bit on the arse by it, I think you just look a little bit silly. You look at Crystal Palace last night, for example, who played QPR. They fielded a relatively strong side. Eze played, and Nketiah played, and Bishop Mateta played as well. So they fielded a lot of key players, and they narrowly just got through. Look, that 11 should be beating Preston. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But I'm so like, I think deflated is probably the right word, because I'm now, and this isn't true at all, but I'm kind of just a bit like, well, what is there to like get overly excited about? Because like I said, I can't envisage a world where we're gonna kick on and push on, but I also can't envisage a world where we're gonna struggle massively and we're gonna go down. So we're kind of stuck in a little bit of a limbo. But look, Marco Silva's a fantastic manager. It was just one of those nights, and we were on the receiving end of a cup set, if you will. And we've just got to kind of, I guess, just dust ourselves down and go into this Newcastle game after what has been actually a really frustrating week for Fulham, or I suppose few days for Fulham. And we've got to ensure that we, don't, we respond positively against Newcastle. Because games come thick and fast, and you need confidence, especially in this division when every game is really challenging.
Absolutely. I think Newcastle is one of the toughest games to have, and I don't even think that Newcastle have played necessarily that well so far this season. They've just grinded out results. Maybe should have lost against Bournemouth, but they didn't, and they're unbeaten this season. What I will say is, like, would you, if someone put a gun to my head and went, "We're going to shoot you unless you answer this question," would you rather lose to Preston, be at the Carabao Cup, but beat Newcastle and get those 3 points? I think I'd probably say, yeah, I would do that. And the reason I say that is because of what happened on Saturday, dropping those 2 points when we were so close to victory. Now I feel like we do need to beat Newcastle, because I'm fearing Forest away, and I fear Man City away like anyone would. What I will say is, and I'm sure you've just looked at your phone the same way I have, that Alexander Isak has not been pictured in training for. We just got sent this tweet by Mr. Greece himself, Joe Sansom. That the striker was not pictured in the club's pre-Fulham training gallery. Now, obviously, there's a couple more days to go before they travel down to London, Newcastle, but Isak could be out of the game against Fulham, which is huge. Any final words on Preston? Let it out now before we move on to Newcastle.
Yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about kind of, I guess, individual performances, I guess. I think that Ryan Sessegnon was outstanding last night. I thought he was really, really
going
good.
Forward or defending as well?
Going forward, he was really, really strong. I think defensively he was okay as well. I think he had a really good game. Reece Nelson was obviously really good and got the goal. I've seen people online today talking a little bit about Rodrigo Muniz, who didn't have the best of games, and I've started seeing people saying, "Oh, we should have bought a striker. And if we're all, I'd say the vast majority of Fulham fans, if we're all being completely truthful, when he was given that number 9 shirt in the summer, we were all completely fine with that because of his performances in the second half of last season. And I don't think that he warranted us bringing in another forward. And you also have to consider as well, we thought that we'd have a third option in Jay Stansfield, and he went on the 11th hour for a fee that we just couldn't turn down. We've now got Muniz and Jimenez, who I think are both fine players for the level. Don't get me wrong, you want a striker who's, really confident, bagging goals all the time. But everybody wants that. And I just think Muniz especially is a real confidence player. And I think he's one of the, he just needs one. And once he gets one, he'll be okay. And then in terms of other performances, I didn't think we were particularly great last night. I thought that first half was really poor. Second half, we looked stronger. And, there's so many times we got down the line and crossed the ball into the box, and there was just nobody on the end of it apart from the Reece Nelson goal. So a really frustrating night for Fulham.
One to forget for sure. Fair play to the Fulham fans who made their way up there as well. Actually, more fans than I thought were going to be there were there, and yeah, fair play. It's a long way to go. It is a long way to go on a Tuesday night, and that's the second time now that we've lost to Preston in midweek. In the last few years, we lost under Parker as well when Mitrovic got a goal back and Nadoy got sent off. Let's park that. Quite literally, we're out of the Carabao Cup. We will see you in January for the FA Cup. In fact, we'll see you in December for the FA Cup third round draw. Now, Newcastle, we are sat on 5 points this season. We have 2 draws, a win, and a defeat. We're unbeaten in 3 league games. That's pretty cool. But is it that cool? Not really. A last minute, heartbreak against West Ham. It was never their throw-in. I've watched it back. I literally saw it back about 45 minutes ago, and it's just not a throw-in to West Ham. It's a throw-in to Fulham, and I think we see the game out from there. It's fine. It's over. We can't go back and change the past. What we can do though is play a Newcastle team on Saturday who we lost 3 times to last season. Once in the FA Cup, twice in the league without scoring. How are you feeling about this, given what I just said about Alexander Isak as a huge boost, but they've got Gordon, Barnes, Tonali's back, Guimaraes, Willock, Longstaff, Dan Burn, Lloyd Kelly, Livramento, Kieran Trippier, like all these really cool, good players. Not Mark Gahey, though. He's still at Crystal Palace. What are your thoughts ahead of Newcastle at home?
I always hate playing Newcastle. Because we have such a terrible record against them. Yeah. It's so annoying. The Isak news is encouraging. Obviously, there's still a few days to go. But even if Isak is out, they have so many unbelievable footballers in their side. And, they will be fine even without Isak, albeit he's a fantastic striker. In terms of the game itself, it's tricky. It's tricky because I just hope there's not a little bit of a hangover from, the Preston game and the West Ham game, and we build up a little bit of, frustration and all we really need a result, because we do need a result. But, you're playing a Newcastle, as you've mentioned, maybe not the most encouraging, but they've grinded out results and they're really strong in all areas of the pitch. But as you said, because they've not, yes, they're on a really good points total, but their performances haven't necessarily correlated to that. That is a slightly encouraging sign for Fulham. And with, our home form has been really solid under Marco Silva in the Premier League. I know that we dropped those 2 points against West Ham, and it can feel a little bit like, oh my God, what the hell is going on at Fulham? But we've got a really strong record at home in the Premier League. And I think that's something to take real encouragement from, alongside the fact of, what I've mentioned about Newcastle's performances and the potential missing Alexander Isak.
This is how they line up against Wolves. Pope in goal, right back Livramento, centre back Sharp and Burn, left back Lewis Hall, 3 in midfield of Longstaff, Guimaraes, and Jolinton, and then Murphy, Jacob Murphy, that is Isak up front with Gordon on the left. They brought off the bench Tonali, Harvey Barnes, Willock, Trippier, and Kelly. Unused subs were Almiron, Dubravka, Kraft, Usula, and that's it. So it's going to be a tricky one. It really is. According to Flash Scores, which I don't really know why I'm using. I usually use FOTMob, but I panicked and couldn't find the panic button. Out of the game could be Botman, Lascelles, Lewis Miley, Callum Wilson still not back as well, and questionable Emmy Kraft and Willock as well. So, and then obviously Isak, we add that to it, but they still have a very, very good squad. Newcastle fans feel very, very buoyed after that win against Wolverhampton Wanderers. I thought that Wolves were quite good, and actually it took a couple of decent strikes from Gordon and Barnes to win the game for Newcastle. And again, it's another example of Newcastle winning whilst not playing at their very, very best. I thought against Tottenham they weren't great and they still won. Same happened against Wolves. They won on penalties against Nottingham Forest in the Carabao Cup. They now play AFC Wimbledon, I think, next week at Plough Lane. they drew 1-1 to Bournemouth, and then of course, with 10 men beat Southampton 1-0, a Southampton team who still have 0 points. So if we're at our A game here, and we've got the likes of Emil Smith-Rowe back, and well, not back because he obviously played last night, but they're starting, and Robinson, Adama, Anderson, Bassi, Tete, Leno, I think we can give them a game, and I think we'll actually get a good result. So how would you line up?
So I would go. I'm just getting the Fulham lineup up from West Ham. So sure. Leno in goal. Same back four of Tete, Anderson, Bassi, and Robinson. I know a lot of people are calling for kind of Andreas Pereira to go and Berger to come in. I would still stick with Lukic and Pereira. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think Berger is still fully match fit, and I don't think it's good to just chuck him in against a Newcastle side who, in midfield especially, are really strong. So I would still go with Lukic and Pereira. Smith Rowe, Adama. I would play Reece Nelson over Alex Iwobi, just because I think he's done enough in that cameo, and then also last night I think he deserves to start. And then I would go with Raul Jimenez up front.
Yeah, that's a tricky one actually with Nelson, because he played quite a lot of minutes last night. Obviously, Iwobi came off the bench. I would just feel as if you would start Iwobi and then bring Nelson off for a bit of sparkle and maybe give him a little bit more minutes than he got against West Ham. But Nelson was really good in the last couple of games, so wouldn't be surprised if he did start, and actually would be very impressed if he did. But yeah, it would be a little bit harsh on Iwobi, I think, who did okay against West Ham. Yeah, I think I agree with that, to be fair. Tete, Robinson, Anderson, Bassi, Leno, Lukic, Pereira, Smith-Rowe. And I think I would go with Iwobi. So it would be unchanged. It'd be unchanged from the West Ham game. Muniz, it looks like he's the second choice at the moment. Jimenez obviously scoring 2 penalties in the shootout. Might do wonders for his confidence. Muniz wasn't even on the pitch for the shootout. Jimenez getting the goal against West Ham. You can tell by my tone, I'm just slightly apprehensive about this whole Fulham team, and especially when it comes to like the attacking areas. You're right in saying Muniz just needs one, and Jimenez, I just don't see Jimenez being a prolific goal scorer for Fulham this season. I am fearing the attacking options that we've got in striker. I mean, I said it last week, Carlos Vinicius. Could we just be waiting for him to come back and then he suddenly comes in and starts firing goals?
He takes number 9 next season.
That would be so funny. That would be so funny. Look, I love this Fulham team. I love every player, but I am worried about the lack of goals from the striker department. I'd love to see, obviously, Jimenez score or Muniz score off the bench. But if like Smith-Rowe could chip in, if Pereira could chip in with a goal, that'd be great. Iwobi, Nelson, there are goals in this team. Adama Traore as well, even Sasha Lukic, who scored against Tottenham last season. So yeah, I'm just a little bit down in the dumps about last night and coming up against a team who are very, very, very good in attacking areas in Newcastle. If it's another performance where Fulham don't take their chances and Newcastle just easily slide a couple of goals in, then yeah, my head will be very hot. So Jack, I think apart from that, we should do a score prediction and then call it a day.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there is actually quite a bit of importance on us getting a result on Saturday, because if we lose on Saturday, we'd have to go to Forest, which is a tricky place. They've started really well.
Yeah.
Then you go to City, and you say you don't get a positive result at Forest, you lose at City, then you're sat on 5 points after a good chunk of games, and it's starting. Alarm bells are slowly starting to ring. After that, we then play Aston Villa,
Champions League Aston Villa, and then we go to Goodison.
But Goodison is just really funny. But like, but Villa, then you play Villa, and it's actually, now I'm thinking about it, it's actually quite a tricky run of fixtures that we.
It's a horrible run of fixtures.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, like we played so well against West Ham that if Danny Ings didn't score in the 95th minute, yeah, we'd be annoyed about Preston, but we wouldn't be going, oh, I'm a little bit worried in terms of, because
would be fun.
We'd be saying, oh, it was a comfortable 1-0 win against West Ham. unfortunately against Preston, but we've got some points. It's fine. Now there's this overriding kind of not so much must. It's certainly not a must-win game for Fulham, but I think it's a must not lose. I think that we need a positive performance and a result, and I do think that we are going to get a result. I'm going to go with another 1-1.
It just doesn't excite me drawing that game. I feel like we need a win. We need to get 3 points, not 1. Unless, obviously, we're 2-0 down or 3-0 down, we come back to draw and it's unbelievable. And we see, Rodrigo Muniz, like Diamante Camara, scoring in the 90th minute with an overhead kick. However, I because of this energy I've got now, I'm going to back us to win the game. I'm going to back us to win the game. I think Newcastle, like I said earlier, just haven't been that convincing in their games this season. And any Newcastle fan will tell you that. And I know Newcastle fans are obviously very, very passionate. But I think the ones who have their Newcastle hats on, but also have their sensible Newcastle hats on, will say that, we haven't. Well, they do it in their accent, obviously. I'm not going to do that now. But they would say, I think that that Newcastle haven't been at their best this season. We might be due a loss, or we might be due a bad result. I would like to think that we're going to win this by, I'll say 2-0. I'll say 2-0 Fulham. Goals either side of the half from Emil Smith-Rowe and then Reece Nelson off the bench. Let's have it. Let's have it. Come on. And to be fair, it's so frustrating playing Newcastle because they've got Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall, and all they do is just wind me up the whole game. And obviously, last time we played Newcastle at the Sausage, at the Craven Cottage, we battered them. Battered Sausage, literally. And then what happened? Pope goes down with what was a fake injury. Eddie Howe gets all the... It's tactical. It's 100% dark arts, and I hate it. And it should be abolished from the game.
I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I hate playing Newcastle. I really do. I actually really like Newcastle as a club. And
absolutely.
James and Clark in the fans. I have nothing against Newcastle as a club. I just hate playing them. I really do.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. I've got nothing but respect for Newcastle fans. I mean, Mike Ashley as the owner, that's enough, toil and trouble to go through in one lifetime, really. But and obviously very pleased that they got Champions League football last season and stuff like that. But I would just love to beat them because Fulham need a win. Fulham do need a win, although Newcastle are like third in the league, so they'll obviously love to win because then they'll be thinking they're in a title race. We are still technically in a title race. I mean, we're not that far off the top. I'm just joking. Thanks so much for watching, Jack. Thanks so much for being here, and thank you for filling in when Joe Sansom was just having it off in Greece, having a nice time.
Yeah, it's all right for some, isn't it, to sit in Greece with what I assume is a beer in hand and not have to worry about how deep Dale is as a result and talk about Newcastle. But no, thanks for having me on. I always love coming on the show, and I'm sure I'll be back again when he inevitably uses his annual leave glitch and books another holiday next month.
Where's he off to next? Yeah, I reckon at the time of me arriving at Deepdale, Joe was probably tucking into a lovely meal on his Greek holiday. So, and then my parents are going to Greece on Monday, so they're all going to Greece. Get into the Greek, said Russell Brand once. We will be there at some point, I'm sure. Thanks so much for watching, Jack. Thanks so much for being here.
Cheers. Thank you, mate.
Right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I know, obviously, we're allowed to be annoyed because we love this club, but let's hope next week we're talking with smiles on our faces that Fulham have come away with a win against another team who wear black and white. Thanks so much for watching, and well, come on, Fulham.